Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Chapter 10. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshana Mutayaha Manvantareshanukatha Nirodho Muktirashrayaha. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, in Shrimad Bhaghavatam, there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: the creation of the universe, subcreation, planetary systems, protection by the Lord, creative impetus, the change of manos, the signs of God, returning home, back to Godhead, liberation, and samam bonam. Dashamasya Vishuddhyartam Navanamiha Lakshanam Varnayanti Mahatmanaha Shrutenartena Lanjasa. To isolate the transcendence of samam bonam, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by the great sages. Bhutamatrendriyadhiyam janmasarga udahrutaha brahmano gunavaishamyad avisargaf paurushasmrutaha. The elementary creation of 16 items of matter, namely the 5 elements fire, water, land, air, and sky, sound, form, taste, smell, touch, and the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and mind, is known as sarga, whereas subsequent resultant interaction of the modes of material nature is called visarga. Stitirvaikuntavijayah Poshanam Tadanugrahah Manvantarani Sadasa Utayah Karma Vasanaha. The right situation for the living entities is to obey the laws of the Lord and thus be in perfect peace of mind under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Manus and their laws are meant to give the right direction in life. The impetus for activity is the desire for fruitive work. Avataranucharitam Hareshchasyanuvartinam Pumsamishakatah prokta Nanakyanopabrumhitaha. The science of God describes the incarnations of the personality of Godhead and his different activities together with the activities of his great devotees. Nirodhosyanu shayana matman shayanam atmanas saha shaktibihi. Nirodhosyanu shayanam atmanas saha shaktibihi muktir hitva yatha rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. The merging of the living entity along with the conditional living tendency with the mystic lying down of Mahavishnu is called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after he gives up the changeable gross and subtle material bodies. Abhasascha nirodhascha yatyadvyavasiye यद्यद्यवसीयते स आश्रयः परं ब्रह्म परमात्मेति शब्दते. The Supreme One, who is celebrated as the Supreme Being or the Supreme Soul, is the Supreme Source of cosmic manifestation as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, he is the Supreme Fountainhead, the Absolute Truth. योऽप्यात्मिकोऽयं पुरुषः सोऽसावेवदिदैविकः यस्तत्रोभयविच्छ्रेदः पुरुषो ह्यादिभौतिकः. The individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the Adhyatmic person, and the individual controlling deity of the senses is called Adidaivik. The embodiment seen on the eyelids is called Adibhautik person. Ekam bhave yadha nopalabhamahe Tritayam tatrayo veda sa atma swashrayashrayah. All three of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood, but the Supreme Being, who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter, is independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. Purushondam vinirbhidya yadasau savinirgataha atmano yana man vichan no napost apostrakshi shuchi purushondam vinirbhidya yadasau savinirgataha atmano yanaman vichan vichanna apostrashri chuchishuchihi. After separating the different universes, the gigantic universe of the Lord, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, Mahavishnu, which comes out of the causal ocean, the place of appearance for the first Purusha Avatara, entered into each of the separate universes, desiring to lie on the created transcendental water, Garbhodaka. Tasvavatsit swasrushtasu sahasram parivatsaran tena narayano nama yadhapah purushodbhavah. That Supreme Person is not impersonal and therefore is distinctively a Nara or person. Therefore, transcendental water created from the Supreme Nara is known as Nara, and because he lies on the water, he is called Narayana. Dravyam karma cha kalascha swabhavo jiva eva cha yadanugrahatah santi na santi yadupekshaya. One should definitely know that all material ingredients, activities, time and modes, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all exist by His mercy only, and as soon as He does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. Eko nanatmavan Tvaman vichan yogatalpat sumuttitaha viryam hiranmayam devo mayaya vyasrujat tridha. The Lord, while lying on his bed of mystic slumber, generated the seminal symbol, golden in hue, through external energy out of his desire to manifest varieties of living entities from himself alone. आदिदैवमताध्यात्मम् आदिभूतमिति प्रभुः अतैकं पौरुषं वीर्यं त्रिधा भिद्यत तच्छृणु. Just hear from me how the potency of his lordship divides one into three, called the controlling entities, the controlled entities, and the material bodies, in the manner mentioned above. Antashharira akashat purushasya vicheshtatah ojassaho balam jagne tatah prano mahanasuhu. From the sky, situated within the transcendental body of the manifesting Mahavishnu, sense energy, mental force, and bodily strength are all generated, as well as the sum total of the fountainhead of the total living force. Anuprananti yam pranaha pranantam sarvajantushu apanantamapananti naradevamivanugaha. As the followers of a king follow their lord, similarly, when the total energy is in motion, all other living entities move, and when the total energy stops endeavoring, all other living entities stop sensual activities. Pranenakshipata shrutrud antarajayate vibhoho pranenakshipata kshutrud antarajayate vibhoho pipasato jakshatascha prandmukham nirabhidyata. The living force, being agitated by the Virat Purusha, generated hunger and thirst, and when he desired to drink and eat, the mouth opened. Sukatastalu nirbhinnam jihva tatropajayate tato nanaraso jagne jihvaya yodighamyate. From the mouth, the palate became manifested, and thereupon the tongue was generated. From this, all the different tastes came into existence, so that the tongue can relish them. Vivakshor mukato bhumno vanhivarga vyahrutam yathoho. Vivakshor mukato bhumno vanhivarvyahrutam tayoho jale chaitasya suchiram nirodha samajayata. When the Supreme desired to speak, speeches were vibrated from the mouth. When the controlling deity fire was generated from the mouth, then the controlling deity fire was generated from the mouth. But when he was lying in the water, all these functions remained suspended. Nasike nirabhidyotam dodhuyati nabhaswati tatra vayur gandavaho ghrano nasi jigrukshataha. Thereafter, when the Supreme Purusha desired to smell odors, the nostrils and respiration were generated, and the nasal instrument and odors came into existence, and the controlling deity of air carrying smell also became manifested. Yadatmani niralokam atmanam chadidhrikshataha nirbhinne yakshini tasya jyotischakshur gunagraha. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see Himself and all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's Son, the power of vision, and the object of sight all became manifested. बोध्यमानस्य ऋषिभिरात्मनस्तञ्जिघृक्षतः कर्णै च निरभिद्योतां दिशश्रोत्रं गुणग्रहः. By the development of the desire of the great sages to know, the ears, the power of hearing, the controlling deity of hearing, and the objects of hearing became manifested. The great sages desired to hear about the self. Vastuno mrudukaटिन्य लघुर्वोष्ण शीततां जिगृक्षतस्त्वङ्गनिर्भिन्ना तस्यां रोममहीरुहाः तत्र चान्तर्बहिर्वातस्त्वचालब्धगुणो वृतः. When there was a desire to perceive the physical characteristics of matter, such as softness, hardness, warmth, cold, lightness, and heaviness, the background of sensation, the skin pores, the hairs on the body, and the controlling deities, the trees, were generated. Within and outside the skin is a covering of air through which sense perception became prominent. हस्तौ रुरुहतुस्तस्य नानाकर्मचिकीर्षया तयोस्तु बलवानिन्द्र आदानमुभयाश्रयम्. Thereafter, when the Supreme Person desired to perform varieties of work, the two hands and the two controlling strength and Indra, the demigod in heaven, became manifested, as also the acts dependent on both the hands and the demigods. Gatim jigīshatah pādau ruruhato bikamikam padbhyam yajñasvayam havyam karmabih kriyate nrubih. Thereafter, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested, and from the legs the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated, and by his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human beings are busily engaged in dutiful occupational sacrifice. निरभिद्यत शिष्णो वै प्रजानन्दामृतार्तिनः उपस्त आसीत् कामानां प्रियं तदुभयाश्रयम्. Thereupon, for sexual pleasure, begetting offspring and tasting heavenly nectar, the Lord developed the genitals, and thus there is the genital organ and its controlling deity, the Prajapati. The object of sexual pleasure and the controlling deity are under the control of the genitals of the Lord. Utsisrukshordhatumalam nirabhidyata vai gudam tataf payustato mitra utsarga ubhayashrayah. Thereafter, when he desired to evacuate the refuse of eatables, the evacuating hole, anus, and the sensory organ thereafter developed along with the controlling deity Mitra. The sensory organ and the evacuating substance are both under the shelter of the controlling deity. Asisrupsoh parah purya na bidwaramapanatāh tatrapanasthato mrutyuhu prutaktvamubhayashrayam. Thereafter, when he desired to move from one body to another, the navel and the air of departure and the death were combinedly created. The navel is the shelter for both, namely death and the separating force. Aditsorannapananam asan kukshyantranadayah nadyas samudrascha tayos tuštih puštistadashraye. When there was a desire to have food and drink, the abdomen and the intestines and also the arteries became manifested. The rivers and the seas are the sources of their sustenance and metabolism. Nididhyasoratma mayam hrudayam nirabhidyata tato manaschandra iti sankalpah kama evacha. When there was a desire to think about the activities of his own energy, then the heart, the seat of the mind, the moon, determination, and all desire became manifested. Tvakcharmamsa rudhira medo manjasti dhatavah bhumyapte jomaya sapta prano vyomambuvayubhihi. The 7 elements of the body, namely the thin layer on the skin itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow and the bone, are all made of earth, water, fire, whereas the life breath is produced by the skin, water and air. Gunatmakanindriyani bhutadiprabhava gunaha manas sarva vikaratma buddhir vijnana rupini. The sense organs are attached to the modes of material nature, and the modes of material nature are products of false ego. The mind is subjected to all kinds of material experiences, happiness and distress, and the intelligence is the feature of the mind's deliberation. Etad bhagavato rupam sthulam te vyahritam maya mahadibhishchavaranair ashtabhirbhahiravrutam. Thus, by all this, the external feature of the personality of Godhead is covered by gross forms such as those of plants, which were explained to you by me. Atah param sukshmatamam avyaktam nirvisheshanam anadimadhya nidhanam nityam brahmana nasah param. Nityam vang manasah param. Nityam vang manasah param. Therefore, beyond this gross manifestation is a transcendental manifestation, finer than the finest form. It has no breathing, no intermediate stage, and no end. Therefore, it is beyond the limits of expression or mental speculation, and it is distinct from the material conception. Amuni bhagavadrupe maya te hyanuvarnite ubhe apina gruhnanti maya srushte vipaschitaha. Neither of the above forms of the Lord are just described unto you from the material angle of vision. Neither of the above forms of Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know Him well. Savachyavachakataya Bhagavan Brahma Rupadrik Nama Rupa Kriya Dhatte Sakarma karmakah parah. He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in the transcendental form, being the subject of his transcendental name, quality, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental variegatedness. Although he is unaffected by all such activities, he appears to be so engaged. प्रजापतीन् मनून् देवान् ऋषीन् पितृगणान् पृथक् सिद्धचारणगन्धर्वान् विद्याद्रासुरगुह्यकान् किन्नराप्सरसो नागान् सर्पान् किंपुरुषान् नरान् मातृरक्षः पिशाचांश्च प्रेतभूतविनायकान् कूष्माण्डोन्मादवेतालान् यातुधानान् ग्रहानपि खगान् मृगान् पशून् वृक्षान् गिरीन् नृपसरीसृपान् द्विविधाश्चतुर्विधा येन्ये जलस्थलनभौकसः कुशलामिक्षाः कर्मणां गतयस्त्विमाः. O King, know from me that all living entities are created by the Supreme Lord according to their past deeds. This includes Brahma and his sons like Daksha, the periodic heads like Vaivaswata Manu, the demigods like Indira, Chandra, and Varuna, the great sages like Bhrigu, Vyasa, and Vashishta, the inhabitants of Pitraloka and Siddhaloka, the Charanas, Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Asuras, Yakshas, Kinnaras, and Angles, serpentines, the monkey-headed Kimpurushas, the human beings, the inhabitants of Matraloka, the demons, Pishachas, ghosts, spirits, the lunatics, and evil spirits, the good and evil stars, the goblins, and the animals in the forest, the birds, the household animals, reptiles, the mountains, the moving and standing living entities, the living entities born from embryos, from eggs, from perspiration, and from seeds, and all others, whether they be in water, land, or sky, in happiness, in distress, or in mixed happiness and distress. All of them, according to their past deeds, are created by the Supreme Lord. Sattvam Rajastama iti Tisra Suranrunarakaha Tatrapyekaikasho Rajan Bhidyante Gatayantriधा Yadaikaikataronyabyam Swabhava Upahanyate. According to the different modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of darkness, there are different living creatures who are known as demigods, human beings, and hellish living entities. O King, even a particular mode of nature, being mixed with the other two, is divided into three, and thus every kind of living creature is influenced by the other modes and acquires its habits also. Sayevedam Jagaddhata Bhagavan Dharma Rupadrika Pushnatistapayan Vishwam Tiryang Narasuradhibihi. He, the personality of Godhead, as the maintainer of all in the universe, appears in different incarnations after establishing the creation, and thus he reclaims all kinds of conditioned souls amongst the humans, the non-humans, and the demigods. Tatah kalagniruddratma yatsrushtamidam atmanah samniyachati tat kale ghanani. Thereafter, at the end of the millennium, the Lord Himself, in the form of Rudra, the destroyer, will annihilate the complete creation as the wind displaces the clouds. Ityam Ittam bhavena katito Bhagavan Bhagavattamah Nittam bhavena hi param drashtumarhanti surayah. The great transcendentalists thus describe the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features. Nasya karmani janmadau parasyanuvidhiyate kartrutva pratishodhartam mayayaropitam hitat. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about His direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. Ayam tu brahmanah kalpaha savikalpa udahrutaha vidhis sadharano yatra sarghav prakruta vaikrutaha. This process of creation and annihilation described in summary herein is the regulative principle during the duration of Brahma's one day. It is also the regulative principle in the creation of Mahat, in which the material nature is dispersed. Parimanam chakalasya kalpalakshana vigraham yata purastad vyakyaste padmam kalpamatho shrunu. O king, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features with the specific symptoms of each, but for the present let me explain unto you the Padmakalpa. Shaunaka uvacha yadahano bhavan suta kshatha bhagavatottamaha chachara tirtani bhuvastyakva bandhun sudustyajan. Shaunaka Rishi, after hearing all about the creation, inquired from Suta Goswami about Vidura, for Suta Goswami had previously informed him how Vidura left home, leaving aside all his relatives who were very difficult to leave. Kshattu kausharave tasya samvadodhyatma samshritaha yadvasa bhagavams tasmai prushtastatvamuvachaha bruhi nastadhidam saumya vidurasya vicheshtitam bandhutyaganimittam cha yataiva gatavan punaha. Shaunaka Rishi said, let us know, please, what topics were discussed between Vidura and Maitreya, who talked on transcendental subjects and who was inquired by Vidura and replied by Maitreya. Also, please let us know the reason for Vidura's giving up the connection of his family members and why he again came home. Please also let us know the activities of Vidura while he was in the places of pilgrimage. Suta uvacha rajñā parikshita prushto yadavochan mahamunihi tadvobhidasye shrunuta rajñah prashnanusarataha. Sri Suta Goswami explained, I shall now explain to you the very subjects explained by the great sage in answer to King Parikshit's inquiries. Please hear them attentively. Thus ends the chapter entitled Bhagavatam is the answer of all questions. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.